Aiki Nanutuyum Analisa Tripp. I'm a Karuk woman, and I come from multiple villages around the area of Sumsbar in Orleans, California. But I also work for my tribe's Department of Natural Resources, and I currently serve as their collaborative stewardship program manager. Fire has been used as a management tool by Karuk people since time immemorial.
Fire is something that we have mastered, and we've used it to mold our ecosystem. It's only within the last 150 years have we had fire taken away from us. So fire is just it's part of us.
My name is Bill Tripp. I'm the Director of Natural Resources and Environmental Policy for the Karuk Tribe's Department of Natural Resources. Well, the Karuk Tribe's territory is a little over 1 million acres. There are 2 national forests that kind of split it right down the middle, 2 counties kind of break that up, 7 different communities, like towns, small towns, scattered throughout that landscape, as well as multiple wilderness areas. We have, small scattered parcels of individual trust allotments and then tribal trust parcels that the tribes acquired one way or another. So it's a pretty complex socio-political situation, but one that we hold pretty close to our hearts, in that we have a jurisdiction in place that overlaps that of the National Forest System, because 98% of that territory is currently under the administration of the National Forest System.
There are 2 different forests overlaying Karuk ancestral territory, so Six Rivers National Forest and the Klamath National Forest. And our relationships with both of them are different. They're in different counties and, under different leadership. So our relationship with either can vary from time to time. Actually, it has kind of gone back and forth, where one forest has been easier to work with than the other, and so on and so forth.
My name's Michael Thom. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Tribal Council. I was a vice chairman when we first became the self-governance tribes. It was important to us to become a self-governance tribe because we wanted to help our members. I think if the U.S. Forest Service would understand the importance of co-management within our areas, the importance of protection, the resources that we have.
We might have differing views with the folks in those Forest Service positions of power at the time. Or we might have someone who's really excited and willing to work with us and excited to work with us, and just the difference that can make is huge.
We've been painted out of the picture by the agency, by the Forest Service. They bring in transient workforce that doesn't even have anything to do with the community. But we are a community.
Scrap burning for the Karuk Tribe is really important. We make sure that we burn at a certain time of year to protect the resources that our weavers have.
Basque weavers, primarily women, almost entirely women, were some of the strongest advocates for working with the Forest Service to get fire back on our landscape for the benefit of Basque tree materials specifically, a lot of which are really, really adapted to fire. All those thousands of years of being treated by fire, they really adapted to that, and are really want it to be able to produce the finest Basque materials.
Hazel sticks, if they're burnt and then they come back the following year or 2, the cellular structure in the hazel stick changes so that it can be twisted and it can make the baby baskets.
Fire has a lot of benefits. Even wildfire has a lot of benefits, wildfires have been going on here for millennia. It just so happens that we have prayer seats up in these high places where we used to wait for our indicators before we light the top of the mountain on fire. And everyone said, oh, there's no indigenous burning in the fire record. It's no, because it happened in the same time of year that fires would start. But what's happening now is the kind of fire that this place hasn't seen. Fire was used extensively, even coming out of the last ice age. It wasn't until about 1911 that we started to remove the indigenous fire use practices from the system. a species like salmon evolved or co-evolved with us in those practices. Spotted owls co-evolved with us in those practices. You remove those practices from the system, you're going to have effects on all those species. So you combine that with, the extreme temperatures and other extreme weather events, and that's coming with the changing climate, and you're setting yourself up for disastrous effects. So, right here on Off-Field Mountain, we have historically lit the top of that mountain on fire annually during the new moon in September. And so part of that is to help to cool the river so the salmon can, survive. Smoke shades the river, and the smoke particulates clog the stomata in the leaves and needles, so they can't use as much water during the day. There's a lot of complexity to this scenario that's played out over the years, and there's a whole lot that needs to be put back in place if we're going to stop losing species and get restore biodiversity.
A lot of what I know, I learned from the elders who taught me, and they said we had to burn. So it's working with the land and not against it. Fire is, it puts so much into the ecosystem that results in having these dependable, nutritious food resources for the people.
A good example of fire really picking up and doing bad things because indigenous people have been removed from that system is the Slater Fire that happened in 2020. The Slater Fire burned down about 50% of the homes in Happy Camp. We're still working to recover from that event.
People talk about Happy Camp in terms of before the fire and after the fire. Just the shock of being here that day on September the 8th, 2020, and seeing how fast that fire moved. I was born and raised in Happy Camp, and we're sitting on a piece of my family's property that I inherited from my grandparents. And so my whole career, 45 years, has pretty much been working for the Forest Service in fire or forestry or cultural resource management. We're in the middle of the Slater Fire, and my cabin's burnt down here. It was, we lost 600 homes in the Slater Fire, and this was just one of the home areas. When the Slater Fire happened, everybody had to leave. Everybody left their dogs, their horses. They had to flee for their life. The whole situation was so unreal that I've been on fires 45 years, and I remember watching that column coming down, that fire had the intensity of it. You could hear it, you could smell it, you could feel it. I looked at that and I was cold inside. I felt ice cold inside because I was in shock. It's just devastated everybody. It's kind of knocked out, like somebody punched you in the stomach and kind of knocked the wind out, and you're trying to gasp for more air. Due to the government and colonization, we were already homeless in our land, in our Karuk tribal ancestral territory. A lot of what burnt was not replaceable for the native people because we couldn't afford to have insurance in the first place.
We're gonna need a paradigm shift. We need to really be able to scale up the prescribed burning activity that goes on. We need to follow that up with maintenance, through prescribed burning, cultural burning, and just every opportunity we can get to put fire back into this landscape in the right way. And we need the federal agencies to really look hard at the Congressional Declaration of Commitment and the findings in the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, and realize that's a government-wide mandate. That's not just about the authorities that are provided to the BIA and the Indian Health Services in that specific act. Move away from this compartmentalized governance structure that just works to retard rather than support, Indian self-governance and self-determination. I made promises to my elders when I was a young person that I would work to help bring fire back to the people. And that's exactly what, we really need to do. We need to bring fire back to people. We want to have the ability to just be able to go be those forever people of the place that we've always been.